Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. On YouTube, a video was done regarding churches being private for taxable purpose, and specifically went into the details of how 501c3s, aka charitable organizations, are private foundations. Here's the intro to that video, and what we're about to talk about is a continuation and a deeper aspect of this regarding the 508 entities. 508c1a, and the fact that the 508s are the true churches that do not qualify for taxation and do not require the filing of taxes. And here's the introduction based on the video. At some point, we've all heard that churches are 501c3, right? According to 26 USC 501. Let's take that a little bit further. And when you begin to look at the tax transcripts of these churches, and you begin to look at the application they sent to the secretary, which is one of the requirements of how to create a 501c3, there's an application that has to be filled out. You begin to realize that some of these entities are not necessarily what people think they are. There are about 7 different types of churches when it comes to tax purposes, as defined by the IRS. The 2 most common ones for the purpose of grants are the ones that you would generally hear about, which is 501c3, and the other ones falls under mandatory exceptions that don't necessarily require the formal application of a 501c3. That video goes on in details regarding 501c3. But other types of entities that IRS does not have jurisdiction over, and because they do not have jurisdiction over it, the most they can say is loosely refer to it, and it is the 508 people loosely also hear about. So this is the big elephant in the room. 501c3 is strictly based on monetary value of the ebbs and flow of the income of the ledger of that entity called a charitable organization. Let's look into the 508 and explain the why and how and the exact details of why 508s should be the entities that you will always pair with your express trust. Just as a heads up, when people want to layer trust in entities, they attempt to make another entity a trustee of a trust, aka an express trust, or make the express trust a trustee of their other types of trust, in this case, the 508. That's called a sham trust. The trust will be pierced. That's not how you lay a trust. If you're not doing it by contract basis, which is shown in the video regarding the vehicle, whereby one entity owns it on the back end based on the security agreement itself, which is the title, the certificate of title, then it will be layered in a different way, but not directly whereby the trust is on the face on the instrument. When they see that, they know whoever is doing that is not quite clear. 26 USC subsection 508. The qualifying factor of this type of specific entity, 508 C18, is scattered around the 26 USC by way of how they explain and clarify that it does not qualify for taxes. So let's go over all that. But some rudimentary details first. The origin of 508 churches is primarily, not the sole origin, but primarily in 26 USC subsection 508 C. C1A. Mandatory exceptions. Meaning, these are not the norm of what 501c3s are. Hence, special rules with respect to entities that are deemed or categorized under some type of religious activity. So they gave you 501c3 explanation and details hearing in 501c3. But then there's special rules, whereas there are exceptions. There are other things. What are those other things? Entities with mandatory exceptions, because 501c3s do file taxes. 501c3s do pay a fee to be created. 501c3s are limited in that they cannot engage in political activities. And if they do, or if any certain amount that they receive is not qualified a certain way, which we went over on YouTube, the video showed, then they lose their tax exempt status. That means someone else has their hands in your so-called religious business. The truth is really not religious. It's just unincorporated religious association of that churches. This is automatically telling you without telling you that something else, and this 508c1a is an upgraded version of 501c3, where the requirements are not strict and are not easily regulated by the IRS. Subsection 6003, returns by exempt organization. When it comes to how it's classified, it's always an exception with this type of entity. When it comes to requirement of tax returns, you can remove the requirement of employment taxes and requirement of retirement taxes just by using this entity in conjunction with your job. Especially if your organization is not necessarily a religious organization. A non-profit organization is not necessarily a religious organization. A private foundation is not necessarily a religious organization. And the IRS delineates clearly the difference, enforced by attorneys. Because they're saying, well, all these people can't come together at once to say anything in this court. So the easiest way is to just relegate all their claims to just one guy who can, for the sake of efficiency, come and speak up. But class action is not where your solution is. If you want to come together and do something, it's called redress of grievances to people. Let's not digress too far. Just as much as 501c3 is just merely a substitute for your free exercise of religion and the fact that they cannot regulate it in any way, which the IRS codes confirm. And they're saying, look, we can't regulate religious activities. There's this thing called audit. Something looks fishy here. What part of the IRS code speaks about tax audit? So before any laws pass, it goes through the House, where they determine, okay, should we pass it or not? What we just saw is the finalized passed version. This right here, all those forms, 1099 OID, all that. Do you know part of where it comes from? You are looking at it. As simple as it is sitting right in front of you, you are. Explanation of provision. Meaning the intent of Congress. It exists based on a full 53 minutes video. It's posted on Patreon page. And the documents to create the 508 is on the Square website. Take care and best of luck.